aloha, everybody that's with us right now. Again, thanks for joining us for Hawaii Invasive Species Awareness Month. And we're really happy to have this talk. We've had a really great series that from 10 o'clock up until now. This morning, we have Christy Martin. She's the project coordinator for the Coordinating Group on Alien Pest Species, which is a project under the University of Hawaii Pacific Cooperative Studies Unit. She's worked on both federal and state policies to address invasive species. And I mean, she has really been able to dive into a lot of complicated policy issues. So she's such a great person to talk on this topic. She's born and raised here on Oahu, and she also is the producer of the award-winning documentary Saving Ohia, Hawaii's Sacred Tree. I just like throwing that in there because I love that picture of you with the Club Sullivan folks holding the Emmy. So she's such a great person in communications, outreach, and policy, and we're really grateful to have her in this invasive species community. So with that, I will turn it over to Christy for her presentation on Speak for the Trees or Coral, how to participate in the legislative process. Just a quick note, you guys are welcome to put questions into the Q&A box or chat throughout the presentation, or at the end, we'll have time to have a discussion and answer some of those questions. So Christy, you can take it away.
All right, mahalo. Thank you folks for hosting this, for arranging it, and also thanks to the participants for joining in. I know it's lunchtime, so do enjoy your lunch. Let me go ahead and share my screen. And let me go. And then I just learned the trick to hide the floating bar at the bottom, so that we don't get all distracted. There we go. All right. So when you think of policy or lawmaking and that sort of thing, I don't know about you, but I started as a biologist. And when I heard about, different laws and policies, my brain would just fog over, and I was not interested. It's really been more recently that I have appreciated the importance of engaging in the legislative process. And so I'm here to tell you how to do it and how to have some fun doing it too. So here's my outline. First of all, where do you start? We're going to talk about how an idea becomes a law. I'm going to tell a couple of stories about two ideas and how one of them became a law. Then we're going to do a short orientation to the Hawai'i State Legislative website. Super important to use the website. How to write a letter of testimony. It's really simple. And how to submit and testify in the era of COVID. Then we'll have some questions and answers. And so I have to say also two things. First of all, the title of my presentation, How to Speak for the Trees. Obviously, for anybody that's read Dr. Seuss, that comes from the Lorax. We speak for the trees or the coral, for they have no voice. And so thank you. I use that without any sort of permission. I'm also going to use the Schoolhouse Rock, I'm Just a Bill images. And I don't have any sort of permission there either, but I think it falls under the fair use doctrine. I've posted the link to it right at the bottom. So that's my outline. So where do you start? How an idea becomes a law. Again, Schoolhouse Rock says, number one, it starts with an idea for a new law or a change to an existing law. You contact a legislator. The legislator may agree to introduce a bill. Hey, that's a great idea. I'll put it into a bill format. That bill gets drafted and assigned to be heard by committees. And so that means that bill is going to get heard in public venues at the legislature. The committees that hear your particular bill all relate to the subject matter that your bill relates to. For example, in this image number one, it's about public safety, right? It's a stop sign. So that would be heard in the public safety committees. Probably going to cost money, so it's going to get heard by the money committees also. Also, you may be aware that in the legislature, all states have a legislature with two sides to it. First is the Senate side, the other is the House of Representatives sides, and they each have committees. So you have the House Committee on Public Safety. You also have a Senate Committee on Public Safety. So anyhow, your bill gets drafted and gets assigned to be heard by the relevant committees. Then that bill has to pass through all of the committees. Let's say your bill was introduced by a senator. So it becomes a Senate bill. It gets heard by the Senate Public Safety Committee and then the Senate Money Committee. It has to also then go back to the start and go through the House Public Safety Committee, the House Finance Committee. So it has to go through both sides. At the end of that process, if it passes, then it goes to the governor, who can either sign it into law, or he could veto it, or that person, the governor, could then let it become a law without signing. And that's like a mild protest, right? I don't agree, but what the heck? And then it becomes a law. So if your bill, we're down at number 6 now, if your bill is not vetoed, then you can celebrate. Bills for new ideas and changes to existing laws rarely pass on the first time. So roll up your sleeves, get ready to introduce your bill language year after year, and hope for incremental changes in the awareness and support for your bill over different years. Laws that pass the legislature become statutes. So in general, and statutes, the Hawai'i Revised Statutes is just this whole long list of authorities that are given to each agency, as well as the different laws. So all of those things are included in the Hawai'i Revised Statutes. So hopefully that's not too much gobbledygook so far. Let me tell you a couple of stories about how this works in practice. How do we get a law passed here? Well, okay, so we've been having this issue about rapid ohia death. It's a disease that is not native to Hawaii, spread in part by beetles that are not native to Hawaii, and it's killing ohia. And it's a really concerning emergency. So ohia lehuas are our most important state, our most important tree in this state, I would argue. It's important culturally, it's important to native ecosystems, it's important to the watershed, and it's also just a tree that is the most abundant native tree. So there was an idea, how do we officially recognize this tree in this state? And a legislator in 2017 said, well, I'm going to introduce a bill that would make ohia lehua our state tree. And so he wrote it into bill format and became Senate Bill 697. And it was introduced, scheduled for hearings. And hearings are just a public discussion of where that bill is discussed by the public and where the public can speak for the trees, literally in this case. But that bill died. It did not move forward to its next committees, not because people don't love ohia, but instead it was because a different tree was already the state tree. It's already a law in the books, in the Hawai'i Revised Statutes, that there's a different tree that is recognized officially as the state tree. I'm just going to ask you first, just a second, type into your chat box, what tree is the official state tree of Hawaii? Folks know the answer. I'll do that. Give you a second to do that. All right, anybody that said kukui or candle tree, candle nut tree, you are correct. So moving forward in our story, I have pasted in here on the right the section of the Hawai'i Revised Statutes that's about the emblems and symbols of the state of Hawaii. So all of these are laws. So I'm just going to read a couple of them. The section 5, chapter 5, section 1. Sorry, that was repealed. I don't know what it was. I'm going to scoot down a little bit. Section 5, chapter 5, section 8, state tree. And I've pulled that out. The state tree is the kukui nut tree, also known as a candle nut. to serve so long as the legislature of the state does not provide otherwise. That means they could have pulled it, but they didn't do it because the public didn't want to. And you can see in brackets, that was passed in 1959. It's been the state tree for quite a long time. So I'm going to move forward in our story. Believe me, this gets somewhere. I'm not just talking about state trees. Take a look at this Chapter 5 index. So you know what an index does. It does the same thing as it does in a book. It tells you what the different chapters are about, the titles of them. So I'm going to read a couple of them, and I want you to notice something about the numbering. I'll start with the state tree. Chapter 5, Section 8, state motto. Chapter 5, Section 9, state song. Chapter 5, Section 10. Moving down, let's look at state insect. Chapter 5, 11.3. State fish. Chapter 5, 11.5. State marine mammal, Chapter 5, Section 12. Land mammal, 12.2. State mammal, 12.5. Okay, there's something you should notice about this numbering. Either a crazy person numbered all these things, or some of these things were added after the whole numbers were inserted in there, right? So if you wanted to keep kukui as the state tree, and you say, okay, there's already a state tree, we're not going to do that, we're going to try that again. Kukui gets its place. And you already see that, okay, there's a state plant. Let's see, that's down at 5-15.5, but there is no state native tree. There is no state endemic tree. There's space. And you could give it a title, a number, you could propose it to be 5-8.2. 5-8.5. I don't quite understand why it's like that, but you could give it a different number. So there's an opportunity. You just have to know a little bit about how the law works to be able to propose the idea, right? So I'm going to go forward with my next story. So that's one way a law could be passed. You look at the space, here's a way to do it. Here's a kind of a fun story. It's a little bit of personal history. So the humu humu nuku nuku a pua'a, the reef triggerfish, is the official state fish. And I worked on this when I was in high school. I was part of the outreach campaign. I was just in high school. It was just a fun thing to do as part of this group I was with. But in that photo on the right, that is, sorry, my right, maybe that yellow long-nosed butterfly fish, that's me in that costume. We passed, the greater we, not me, actually, I was just part of the outreach campaign, but that we were able to pass adopting humu humu nuku nuku apua'a as the official state fish. Well, we didn't know it had a sunset date. That means a date where that law got automatically repealed and pulled off of the books. And that was 5 years from them. So in 1990, humu humu nuku nuku apua'a was no longer our state fish. But nobody knew it, because who reads the Hawaii revised statutes and notices things like that? It just becomes one of those repealed words. And you have to dig in to figure out what was repealed. But a kid noticed, and a kid said, hey, you mean humu's not our state fish anymore? And he contacted his legislator. The legislator said, hey, you're right. Go figure. And he introduced a bill. He was a House of Representatives rep. And the bill was given a House number, HB 1982. And it was heard in 2006, went through the legislature, went through all of the committees, and it was passed. And so therefore, humu humu was once again our state fish. And this time the language does not have a sunset date on it. So there's a couple of examples of how people can really influence what happens at the legislature, and why our voice is so important. So I'm going to move on and just talk a little bit about the state legislative website, because it's got to be your best friend in speaking for the trees. So if you go to www.capitol.hawaii.gov, or you can just Google Hawai'i Legislature, this will pop up. This is the home page. And one thing I want you to do is, if you intend to put in testify, register for a free account. It's easy. Just put in your name, your address, all of that sort of thing, and you will have a free account. If you want to submit testimony on bills, you need to have an account. You need to submit your testimony. Now, in the time of COVID, the only way to do it is through that website using your free account. You can also receive hearing notices for specific committees. Like, there's like 34 different committees, and you don't want to be looking at committee hearing notices to see if there's anything you're interested in. So instead, sign up for only the committees that you think the bills you'll be speaking on or are interested in will be heard. For me, invasive species, okay, I'm going to sign up for water land. I'm going to sign up for energy environment. I'm going to sign up for the money committees. Sometimes I'll sign up for government operations, because if there's a change to how government works, it gets heard through that. So anyhow, you can sign up to get notices sent directly to your email for specific committee notices. And I just wanted to point out at the bottom these little square icons that say testimony, hearing notification, all of that sort of thing. We're going to talk about those little square icons a little bit later. Oh, there you go. So let's talk just a bit more about committees. So from those square icons, you can click on the button that says committees, and you can see a whole list of 34 subject matter committees. You'll see who the chair is, who the vice chair, who's the members. I just took a screenshot of a partial list. As I mentioned, bills that are related to things like rapid ohia death are typically scheduled for the subject matter relevant committees. So it'll be heard by the House Committee on Water & Land, and the Senate Committee on Water and Land, followed by the Money Committee. So on the House side, that's House Finance, and on the Senate side, it's Ways and Means. So you might say, well, okay, I just want to focus on one bill. And you can do that. To practice, you can practice just looking at one bill and track it through the legislature, and maybe you want to chime in at some point. If you know a bill number of something that's moving through the legislature, it's been introduced and been scheduled for committees, you can look up the number and just follow the directions right on the top left-hand side of that homepage. SB 123 or HB 456, and you can hit go, and it'll take you directly to that page. If you don't know the bill number, and what I do at the beginning of session is I just type in some keywords. So for example, when January rolled around and bill cutoff came, the deadline for introduction of the bills, I just did a keyword search. I use things like invasive species, biosecurity, ohia, and aquatic biosecurity. So I look through those things and see what's being heard. And I make my list of things that I want to track. So let's say you know the number of a bill, or you see a bill in your list of bills that pop up when you have your keyword. It takes you to the status page of each bill. So each bill is assigned a status page where you can see what's going on. That status page, I'm just going to read from the top of that screenshot down. So the title, it's got a longer title to it. It's got a description. A companion bill is when both the House and the Senate have a bill with similar language. It gets a similar intent, and it's introduced both on the House and the Senate side. So that's what a companion bill is. And it gives you a little link to that bill. Is it part of a package? Governor's package is an example of a package if it's one of his super high priorities, so put in his package. Where has it been referred to? What committees do I need to watch? Well, this one relating to inspection fees has been signed up for the agriculture committees and the finance committees. Okay, you can see the list of the introducers. Who's behind this bill? Everybody in capital letters signed it. They feel strongly about it. Those that are not in caps, maybe less strongly, but they do support. They vocalized their support for it. Another thing you can see from the status page, you can just see what's going on with it. The last thing that happened was on the 10th of this month, February. It was heard in the Agriculture Committee. You can see how they voted. You can look on the right side of my screenshot. You can look at what the testimony was. You can read what people said. And let this be a note of warning to you. If you're going to put in testimony, you better be willing to stand by everything you say, because it is public information, public access once you hit send. Also, thanks to COVID, all of the hearings are recorded and you can look at them even after the fact on YouTube. Moving forward, all right, from that main page again, let's say, okay, I just want to see what's being heard. Okay, I don't know any bill numbers. I don't want to do a search. I just want to look at one of the hearings today. So you can go to the hearing notices and you can see the list of all of the hearings that have been scheduled. You'll see the committees that are hearing it, and it gives you a link to the notice, what bills are being heard on that agenda. So that's what the link is in there. It all shows you that they're all streamed to YouTube. The live hearings are streamed to YouTube. Let's say you did as I suggested and you registered for a free account on the website and you signed up for notices directly via email for the committees you're interested in. So here's one that came to me. It's the Water and Land Committee. And this one, a sample of one that came to my email box. I've truncated it, so pardon me, that's why I say it's sample. It contains all of the information you need for your testimony. That's next. The hearing notices are posted at least 48 hours in advance, and that is a requirement. Just notice though, or just be aware that they will send out notices, they will post notices of their hearings, even on weekends, even on holidays. And they get down to the minute when things are getting really busy and things are jam-packed in there. So you can see the chair, Rep. Tarnas, Vice Chair, Rep. Branco, all of the committee members, the hearing, February 18th, that was this morning, 8:30 via video conference, all of that information you're going to need for your letter. So let's get to a letter. Don't be worried. I mean, if you're like me, you did not even write a letter of thank you to like Santa or your grandma. I mean, I just really bad at the whole letter writing thing. And so it's not lost on me how funny it is, how many letters I have to write nowadays. It's like my penance. But it is easy, really 6 steps. Always include the date, the time, the committee information for the hearing. That's always in your top left corner. Then you want to clearly state your position on the bill. So I have a testimony in support of, testimony in opposition to House Bill, whatever it is, 1, 2, 3. Your salutation. You can use aloha, you can say greetings, you can say dear, whatever you would like to say. But you're addressing the chairs of the committee hearing your bill. So Chair Tarnas, Vice Chair Branco, members of the committee. My name is, fill in the blank, and I'm testifying again in support of or in opposition to. If you're testifying on behalf of a group, like I have to do, coordinating group on alien pest species, which is a mouthful, I will say the coordinating group on alien pest species supports HB 123. So you've got 3 choices. You can either support, you can oppose, or you can provide comments on. That's it. You just got 3 choices. Be clear about which one you're choosing, though, in your testimony. Middle of my letter, that's the body of your letter. Just at least one reason why you support or oppose, or the information. If you're just making comments, what is your comment? Your closing sentence, why you think their support would help, why you think it would hurt if it passed, that sort of thing. And then thank you. Always say thank you for hearing, for the information, for allowing you the ability to testify. Just thank you. Always sign your name, and that's it. That's letter. It's 6 easy steps. It doesn't have to be long. They do read your testimony. Now we get to submitting and testifying in the era of COVID, and this really is different this year from any other year. We have a legislature that is the most open and accessible, I have to say. Not that I've ever really testified in any other state, but that you can walk in pre-COVID, walk into any of the sessions, any of the hearings, walk into any of the legislators' offices without an appointment, just and have meetings. You can run into them in the hallway and have discussions, or at least you could pre-COVID. It is really open. So I appreciate all of the work that's done now with COVID to try to continue that openness and that accessibility. But having said that, the state capitol is closed to the public. The legislators are there, the staff are there, trying to conduct hearings socially distanced. I mean, you see the hearing rooms and they are far apart from each other. But they're providing us access through Zoom and providing everybody access through YouTube. You can watch all of the hearings. That has never happened in the past. We would never have that much access previous to this. And those folks from neighbor islands, even thank you for joining us, Ashland, Oregon. You can join in and view the session. You can testify. So that is all possible. So anyway, getting to how to do it. Log in to your account, your free account that I've suggested you do. Type in your bill number and hit continue. That is going to take you to another page. I'll take you to that in just a second. But also just notice once you sign in, this is your area, a screenshot of my area. So you can see a couple of the bills, the green box on the lower left, a couple of the bills I've testified on. It's got the little thumb sign, so I've testified in support. I can view my testimony, all of that. So it tracks everything there. We're going to get back to this green box in a minute. So you hit continue. Here's what it takes you to. Here's the bill you're testifying on. Here is the what your name is. So just type in your name. Do you support, oppose, comments? You only have 3 choices. Are you testifying yourself or on behalf of the organization? Type in your organization. How will you be testifying? If you plan on attending the session and participating verbally, then click on the Zoom. If you're only going to submit a letter and not attend, then you can click on the second one and just know that they will hear it. Sorry, my phone is going crazy this morning. It also, if you scroll down, and I'm sorry, I didn't take a screenshot of that, but it gives you a little word box. You could type in your testimony right on this form. You can cut and paste your testimony into the form, or you can just simply hit enter and it'll record your vote as support or oppose. You can also upload a letter that you've drafted separately, as I typically do when I have time to draft the letter, because I have it on the letterhead. That's kind of important for organizations. So I hope that's clear. So moving forward, getting back to that little green box I told you about. Okay, let's say you clicked, I want to participate. I want to be in that hearing Zoom room with the legislators, and I want to have my say. I speak for the trees and the coral. Okay, so how do you do that? When you hit that Zoom thing, what you want to do is before the hearing, at least a half hour before the hearing, open up your page again, log in, look at that green box again. That green box will show, instead of view on the side, it'll show Zoom link. And you can click on that, and once the Zoom room is open 30 minutes before the hearing, it will put you into that Zoom room, and you'll be able to participate when it is your turn. So that is the key, the little green box. Keep your comments short, less than 2 minutes. Everybody's got less than 2 minutes. Do not read your letter. Instead, say your name. My name is Christy Martin. I'm with the coordinating group on alien pest species, and I just want to summarize and highlight some information for you about this and tell them. So that is how to be the most effective. You can really, some of the hearings get really full of people testifying, so they've been trying to limit to 2 minutes. Please don't read your testimony. That really kind of irritates them. They have the letters in front of them. You're required to turn in your testimony 24 hours in advance, or risk not being included in the packet, electronic packet, that gets delivered to those legislators so that they can read it before the hearing. They got homework to do. And so our role in participating is that we need to abide by their timelines. 24 hours in advance, join the hearing 30 minutes before start time. So that is how to do it, sort of the short and sweet. I put in here a couple of other resources that are like lifelines. On that state capitol website, there's a FAQ page, and some of them are really, really good. They went through and they really answered some great questions. So you might want to just scroll through there and take a look at what they've got under their FAQs. If you get stuck and you want to know, okay, what does deferred mean? Believe me, it is really hard to find that defined anywhere. What you can do is you can call up the public access room or email the public access room staff. Typically during session, or actually even not during session, there's a room where this staff that helps educate people and help us engage in the legislative process, where they can answer our questions. It's closed right now, but they're there and answering questions. They also do presentations for other groups, similar to what I've done for you folks. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen because I get really tired of seeing the bug crawl into my name. There we go. And I can take questions. Happy to try and answer. So go ahead.
Thank you, Christy. That was very interesting. I really appreciate that walkthrough of the process. And there are some questions. Randy Bartlett is wondering if he asked, what do you mean by quote unquote money committees? What are they, excuse me, and how many?
Yeah, so in the House as well as in the Senate, so the two sides of government, each have duplicate committees. So in the House, it is this House Finance Committee, and in the Senate, it is the Senate Ways and Means Committee. So those are the ones, any law coming through, particularly when they have money attached to it, or it may cost money, or it may cost existing money, it may cost agencies to do something to comply. It always goes through those money committees so that they can consider and weigh out and balances all of the needs for not just your issue, but everybody's issue. It is a big balancing act, and it is not easy to do. So those committees are very important, but they got a big job.
They do. That sounds important. And if anybody else has any, oh, I think we got another one. Lori Rollins from Oregon was wondering, to testify, must I have a current address in Hawaii?
I have not seen that. In fact, I believe they are opening up testimony to anybody who wants to engage. especially because we know that there's a lot of residents who, or former residents or people that really care deeply about Hawaii, and we cannot cut off their voices. They have as much stake to say in the protection. I'm just going to speak from this invasive species perspective. They have as much to say about the protection of resources and society in Hawaii in future generations as we, the current residents, do. So no, you are not limited. You do not need a local residence. So please do chime in.
And there's another question from JB Friday. So he was asking, so you submit testimony personally as well as on behalf of CGAPs. If so, how do you decide which is which?
It's pretty clear to me, but maybe not so clear to other people. We have a strategic plan, and it's shared with HISC now. So we've got our strategies, and if legislation relates to one of those strategies, which have been accepted by our steering committee on the CGAP side, it's been accepted by the HISC Council on their side. So I feel very confident when I do submit testimony that if it fits under one of those strategies, I can speak on behalf of the needs when that bill relates. When it does not, and sometimes it does not, for example, if there's a bill that's being heard about, something that's near and dear to my heart, like beach access or something like that, that's nowhere within the HISC and CGAP strategy. I cannot represent my group. So I testify as a public citizen. And that's an important point also. Even people in state government or federal government, you are also residents, and you can share your voice on any issue that relates to you as a private citizen. All you have to do is be clear about that in your testimony.
Thank you. And you had a thank you from Lori in Oregon for answering your question. And if anybody else doesn't, I actually have a question for you too, if we have time for it. It's kind of a two-parter, but are there really important dates that we need to know in order to monitor the legislative process here? And then the second part of my question was, do you find that it really is important to be present for your testimony? Or do you think that just participating in that where you're checking off the boxes also works?
Remind me of the second question. Let me answer the first question first, though. The dates. There is a calendar. It is on the website. And the calendar, legislature always starts second Wednesday of the month. Third Wednesday? Mid-January every year, so you know it's going to start. There is a bill introduction cutoff, so you have to have any bill you're interested in. You better have your legislators lined up before they need to introduce it. Coming up, the next most important deadline is crossover. It's that date that I said that, you know, once your bill gets heard by one side, it's got to cross over to the other side. If your bill hasn't been heard by the committees it's been scheduled for by crossover date, they die. Here's the technical part, though, to the answer. Hawaii works on a biennial schedule. So every 2 years is what the planning is. So bills that are introduced this year can be picked up next year if they haven't made it through all of the processes. So it's not dead yet. I think it'll go for a walk unless it gets heard by a committee. It is and not voted to be passed. Then it is not likely to be passed at that next year. So lots of details. Look at the calendar. For the second part of your question, which
was about live testimony, and if you think that really makes a difference in the impact that your testimony has.
I am an educator at heart, and the value of adding a human voice to your testimony cannot be understated. If you have something that you think will move others And if you feel so moved to speak, if you can make the time to participate and testify, then please do. Having said that, try not to testify on everything that you love, because there is such a thing as being too present.
Great. I think that that Chelsea shared the session calendar. Thank you, Chelsea. And does anybody else have any more questions? Well, you've got this great opportunity to talk to someone who has this breadth of experience with interacting with the Hawaii legislative process. I don't think I'm seeing any more.
I mean, you're looking at the butterfly fish for the Waikiki Aquarium. Come on.
It's funny, you know, in preparing for this, I was like, hey, we did that thing. And so I started Googling around, and I posted it on my Facebook page and that sort of, so it was kind of a fun walk down memory lane. I'm like, hey, wait, I've been doing this for a while now.
I like that you were doing outreach in high school, Christy. Amazing.
I was just, no. And so this is kind of a lesson to folks, right? I wasn't. I was there because my friends were there. I was there because there were cute guys there. And that was, I could get a credit for school for participating in this program called Blue Water Marine Lab, and the college equivalent Marine Option Program, still running at the university today. But let this be a lesson to all of us who try to engage other people in our volunteer programs, or even in providing testimony. You may not engage them on the issue per se, but you may engage them because we are people and we're social people. And if we go in through that door, sometimes you get a life longer. One who dedicates their life to doing it, when really all they were trying to do was just like hang out with cute guys.
Well, we're lucky to have you and fighting for our forests and protecting our corals. So thank you so much, Christy. I don't see any more questions in the chat, but I mean, this video is going to be a great resource for folks to tap into after the recording is posted. I think it's just a really great walk through the legislative process, which can be overwhelming. I mean, I worked at the legislature and I was overwhelmed. So thank you so much for putting this presentation together.